Hey, what's going on, guys? It's Bakes here, and thank you for joining me for day number 24 of my 31 Days of Horror. Today's movie is one I hyped up a fair bit yesterday, towards the end of yesterday's 31 Days review, saying that it was a cult classic and it was going to be a fun one, but I mostly kept my cards pretty close to my chest. But today I get to reveal it is the movie that gets the mantle of being the best, worst horror movie of all time. From the year 1990, I'm sure you guys have connected the dots, and obviously it's the title of today's video, Troll 2. This is my Troll double feature, so we're talking about the sequel here. Troll 2, like I said, is known as being the best, worst horror movie of all time. And we'll get into my thoughts on that. There's been a documentary made about this movie. It's got this cult following, these people that go to these like conventions and things just to talk about their love and appreciation for this movie, even though it's not very good. I feel like there's a handful of movies out there that sort of get that mantle of being the best worst movie of all time. The other one that I hear that about a lot, regardless of genres, is Tommy Wiseau's The Room, which I'm also a fan of that movie. I think it's pretty funny. But I feel like that's the best worst movie in terms of like a drama. But when it comes to horror, as I said, I think most people bring Troll 2 to the table. And as I said, when you have a documentary made about the movie being the best worst horror film of all time, it's sort of got a case for itself. But this is a movie that I've seen 3 times now, something like that. So let's get into the plot for Troll 2 before I get into my thoughts and whatever and start rambling about this film, because there is a lot to ramble about. But in this movie, we follow a family who is doing this temporary move to the town of Nilbog. I say temporary because there's this whole thing going on where it's like a family swapping situation. Like they're going to go to Nilbog and the family from Nilbog's going to go to wherever they were living. I've already forgotten. Why? Your guess is as good as mine. Like that's like a big thing where I'm like, okay, why the fuck are they doing this? But they, for some reason, just are. And our main character in the movie is the son, Joshua. And Joshua isn't thrilled about moving to Nilbog because his ghost Grandpa Seth, and you heard me right, ghost Grandpa, has been telling him stories about goblins, and apparently in Nilbog, the town is flooded with goblins, and going there is just not safe for the family and whatever. So he's trying to get Joshua to get his family out of there before something bad happens. And I'm sure it's no surprise when they do get to Nilbog, there are goblins, and they're trying to get the family to eat this goblin slime shit that turns them into goblins. And yeah, that's pretty much the gist of the movie. It's not anything groundbreaking, but yet there's still just some bizarre wild shit going on. So let's get into this one. So is this movie actually the worst horror movie of all time ever? For those who have seen this movie, you can make up your own mind, obviously. But for those who, really care about my opinion, is it the worst horror movie ever? No, I don't think so. There are countless other movies that I've seen that have just been a lot worse than this one. But is it the best worst horror movie of all time? I don't know. Like, I think it has a case to be argued, especially, if this is a nostalgic movie for you, or if you've seen it more times than what I have. You know what? Like, the first half of this movie, maybe even a little bit past the halfway mark, like, it's somewhat enjoyable. Like, I'm along for the ride. I know that it's stupid. I know that it's goofy, but I'm, biting. I'm playing along with it. I'm like, okay, this is fun. It does get to a certain point where I'm like, okay, this is just becoming a little bit too much, and I'm kind of over it, and I'm like checking my phone going, okay, the runtime is surely up by now. But it's not the worst thing to be sitting through, if you know what I mean. But yeah, at a certain point past the halfway mark, it is just becoming a little bit too much. So the obvious thing to start with when people say, this movie's not very good, most people will bring up the acting. To be fair, I think for like the cast as a whole, I think it is very 50-50. There's some actors in there trying their best. There's some actors in there who are doing passable performances. But then there's also actors where it's just like, yeah, no, you're not very good. I think the first scene in this movie where the acting like really shows how choppy it is the scene between the older sister and her boyfriend who snuck into her bedroom, and that whole bedroom scene. The acting in that is like pretty rough, and yeah, it gives you a good taste of like where the acting is going at some points in this movie. Like, I'm so certain there's a part in that scene where the boyfriend and girlfriend and sister, whatever you want to call them, are chatting in the bedroom. I'm so sure he's reading his lines in the background because she's looking at him and he's looking like way past her, just staring off in the distance. I'm like, I can almost guarantee he's reading his fucking lines. But yeah, like the acting overall is pretty 50-50. There is one character in this movie, which is kind of a spoiler, but when we're talking about a movie like Troll 2, I don't give a fuck. There's a character in this movie, she's like a witch, I guess, like the goblins in this movie, they're not called trolls for some reason, even though the movie's called Troll 2. The goblins in this movie are the villains, but she's sort of the witch that's like controlling them and running the show and whatever. The actress who's playing that witch, I don't know what movie she thinks she's in. I want to see that movie that she thinks she's in, but she's like giving it her fucking all, and it's like so like her performance is over the top, and she's like really hamming it up, but like I think she's doing like a whole different thing for like the movie that she's in, if that makes sense. Like she's going above and beyond. I want to see whatever movie she thinks she's in, but this isn't it. With the performances that we get, and you know the dialogue that is written and whatever, you get so many iconic lines. I think the most iconic line from this movie is when the boyfriend's mate is watching this girl get eaten by the trolls, or the goblins, sorry, and he says the iconic line, "They're eating her, and then they're gonna eat me. Oh my god!" And I no joke, I think I just acted it better than him. The fly flying around on his face, for some reason, that just makes the scene so much better for myself. I don't know why. If the fly wasn't there, it just adds that little bit of spice, which I really like. My personal favourite line from this movie is when the dad puts Joshua in his room and says, "You can't piss on hospitality, I won't allow it." That's my favourite line. There's also another pretty good one towards the back half of the movie when Josh is getting circled by the goblins, and he goes, "A double-decker bologna sandwich." That line is also very, very good. Big fan of that. So let's get into the goblins in this movie. You might be wondering why I'm saying goblins when the movie's called Troll 2. I think it might be a circumstance of like the script for this movie was for a totally different film, and then just like the studios or whatever were like, no, we're gonna attach it to the original Troll movie now, and you know, they just forgot to change it from goblins to trolls in the script. I really don't know, but the word troll is not said once in this movie. They're called goblins. The goblin designs are pretty lousy. They're just generic monster masks. They wear like these burlap sack brown robe things with like pillows pushed underneath to give them a little bit more chubbiness, I guess. They look fucking terrible, but there's also like a charm to it, I suppose. They walk around with spears, and you know, they eat people and turn them into goo. I think the goo effects are actually not too bad. I don't mind it. The town that they go to is called Nilbog, and there's a big reveal at a certain point in this movie that Nilbog is goblin spelled backwards. But you didn't need that big reveal because, you know, we have fucking brains, and when Nilbog is first said, you're like, is that fucking goblin backwards, after goblins have been spoken about so many times already in the movie. Like I said, this review is just going to be rambling, so just let me continue rambling, please. Story-wise, like I said in the intro during the plot description, Grandpa Seth is a ghost. Why has Grandpa Seth returned as a ghost? It's not really explained. I guess to warn Joshua about goblins. But why does Grandpa Seth know so much about goblins? I don't know, he just does for some reason. I guess ghosts know things about goblins. Does Grandpa Seth have the ability to freeze time? Because there's a scene in this movie where the family's about to eat this food that's been prepared for them, but it's got the goo in it that turns them into goblins. And Grandpa Seth goes, "You got about 30 seconds before they eat that, you need to stop them." And you think like it's metaphorical, like they've got about 30 seconds, you know, setting up cutlery and whatever. But no, time literally freezes for 30 seconds. Like, what? Like, that's not explained. And like, even the family swapping houses situation, like, that doesn't make sense either. But it's just one of those movies. So I'm pretty much ready to wrap up this review. This is probably my least prepared that I've been for any of my 31 days so far this year. Just because this movie, you know, there's not a lot of substance, but also at the same time, you sort of know what you're getting yourself into, especially when this movie, like I've said so many times, is regarded as the best, worst horror movie of all time. Technically, it has been the worst movie that I've watched so far for this year's 31 Days lineup. There's one coming up on the lineup that I think honestly could be worse than this movie, just from memory. And the last time I checked that movie out, it wasn't very good. But with that being said, this still actually wasn't my least favorite watch from this year's lineup. Like, it technically is the worst movie, but man, The Forest that I watched on like day 13, 14, something like that. Oh, fuck, The Forest was rough. Like, at least this one, like, it's so stupid and dumb and ridiculous. Like, you can have fun with it. The Forest was just a bit of a drag with some okay moments. I'm sure a lot of people would have wanted me to talk about like the making of Troll 2 and the behind the scenes and, like I said, the documentary and whatever. Honestly, like, I know a little bit about, the behind the scenes and making of and all the stuff to go along with it, but not enough for, a whole segment in a review or whatever. So I'm not going to dwell on that too much. And honestly, most of the movie is just like not purposely funny either. There's like one funny part that was like meant to be funny that I laughed. And that's the part where one of the boyfriend's mates says to the cop, after the cop gives him a lift into town, he goes, "Hey, where do the single girls hang out at night?" And the cop just drives away laughing, like, "Single girls, you're a fucking idiot." Giving this movie a rating out of 10. I'm probably going to give it a 3 out of 10. Like, you can have fun with this movie, but it's not good. Yeah, I don't know. Like, as I said, this is like my least prepared review. You've probably just heard a lot of ums and ahs. As I always do for my reviews, I take like some notes just so I can keep track of like what the fuck I've already said and things like that. But my notes are pretty blank. It just says like right now I'm just reading double-decker bologna sandwich that I've written in capitals with plenty of exclamation marks behind it and stuff. But that's the type of movie you're getting. Thank you for joining me for day number 24. I need to get out of here because my brain is just rotting from watching this movie and then coming upstairs and trying to piece together thoughts for today's review. But I'll see you tomorrow for day number 25. A movie that it's been a little while since I last checked it out, so I'm excited to get into that one again. But thank you for joining me for today's review, and I'll see you tomorrow, guys. Peace.